some of the things that are happening on both sides of the stairwell here. And I'll hand it over to Ruth, let her do all the financial things. Yeah.
The late Dominican dues are, need to be paid, so if you haven't paid that, check with us, get with us on that. And then I have the minutes, if anybody wants to take a look at those. And also to the the sign-in sheet, I'm gonna send that around as soon as I get done to sign in for today. And then also too, we have available, the booklets here, the modular booklet and the Dominican forms folder. And they're really nice. This has all the modules in it that you're gonna need. And then, and this one has all the forms that you're gonna need in it. And this one is 20 and this one is 10, which is a really good, or this is 20 and this is 10, sorry about that. But if you wanna get with us on that, that's all I have.
Okay, so we're gonna, the topic this week is the module about the rule. And as Brother John said last week, a new rule came out in 2018. We did find the interpretation from Latin to English. However, we're trying to get them to allow us to pass it out. I think it was a chapter in Rhode Island had it online.
Well,
okay.
it's not translated either.
Oh, okay.
So I'll talk about that in just a
Okay,
second.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah,
So anyway,
unfortunately, it's not ready.
it's not ready to be handed
Unless you
out.
know Latin.
So unless you know Latin. So anyway, but that I'll hand it over to Casey and let him talk about the rule and make sure that you guys obviously follow the rules. You know, I mean, it is important. You know, God has given us through the Holy Mother, and we know through the church that praying the liturgy of the hours on a daily basis and the Rosary and doing going to Mass and confession are very, very, very important to us as Dominicans. And then also to familiarize yourself with the rules is exceedingly important. Because a lot of people are neglecting, I think in the church and the hierarchy are neglecting things of that nature. So we have to make amends for that. And I think being faithful to the rule and to our daily duties is exceedingly important for the Virgin Mary to intercede for us to her Son. So I'll turn it over to Casey.
Okay. So on your novitiate module number 2, it covers the rule of the lay fraternities of St. Dominic. The rule of the lay fraternities of St. Dominic sets forth the basic charism of the order of preachers, Dominican order, and how it is lived by the laity. It expresses the life and purpose of the Dominican laity. So usually the novice, this is a novice module, so a novice will particularly focus on the rule during their novitiate, and that's they need to be reading it and becoming very familiar with it, because when you take your first promises, you're taking promises to the rule itself and not necessarily to the Dominican order, but to the rule. And so if you're not familiar with the rule, then you're standing on your head, kind of, I think. You're not doing things right. So the rule is kind of the foundation of the main focus of your novitiate. Now, when I was in religious life, we had just specific classes on our rule when I was in religious life, and I was under the rule of St. Francis at the time. And St. Francis wrote a rule, St. Dominic wrote a rule. Now, Dominic adopted St. Augustine's rule. So Augustine had wrote a very elaborate rule. St. Benedict had wrote a very elaborate rule, and St. Basil at the time. So all three of those saints had wrote very detailed rules for religious to live by. And when Dominic and Francis came along, they basically were standing on top of the heads of the earlier saints. So they were able to add to it and modify it and not change it, but to make it grow into something even more useful. So the first thing to understand is rules. I mean, we have a culture that says rules are oppressive. They basically restrict you, and they're not freeing. But if you look at it from a saint's perspective, or from the church's perspective, or the Catholic perspective, the rules are there for our freedom. That's what it means. Because when we break the rules, that's when we enter into slavery. So we got to untwist how we've been raised and understand that a rule is a good thing because it brings freedom. It enables you to be the person that God wants you to be. It sets you free to be able to do that. So there is that whole aspect that you always got to kind of keep in the back of your mind when dealing with rules. It's because we're so oppressed with the secular rules, and basically I once heard that if a country just makes the 10 Commandments the rules, then you don't have to have any more rules, because the 10 Commandments sums up everything on a secular level. So but because we have allowed certain 10 Commandments to be broken on a rule level, they have to create all kinds of new rules in order to kind of bring some form of balance to a society. So just keep that in mind. So the rule of Dominican, the third order Dominican rule, is basically there to help us, guide us. And it actually is there to protect us from any kind of corruption. Because you could have a superior, and this is especially for religious communities, you can have a superior that wants to change things, but the rule is there to protect the follower or the community from corruption. That's what it's intended. Now what they end up doing is changing the rule and going about it in what seems to be an official way, and slowly erode the deep roots of the Catholic Church by adjusting the rule here and there every 5 or 6 years and making tweaks to it, and that's not necessarily a good thing usually. So there has been 6 different rules for the lay Dominicans since the first one, and I've had a heck of a time trying to find a good translation of any of the rules. So I don't know, Tim.
Mhm.
Can you answer the question of where this thing came from?
That came from the Central Province.
Central Province.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, the Eastern Province.
Okay, so actually this has been, out of all the ones that I've looked at and printed off, this one seems to be the best It's simple. It's the simplest translation, and it's close to the other translations, but I know I could not find this online. I don't know where you guys got it, but
I think they handed it out over at the
Okay.
Our Lady Queen of Peace
okay, so
chapter meeting.
it is good, but they have a new rule that's not been translated into English that came out last year, and it was approved. And from what I can tell, because I'm not good at reading Latin, but I know a few key words, and I was looking at the Latin, and it seems to match up pretty close to what this one was. And this one was made in, I think, what year was this? 1987. So this is when this rule was made, 1987. But they have a new version of the rule, and I don't know the differences. I was trying to find since there's no English stuff on the newest rule, I could not find the differences on what has been changed from 1987 to 2019. But anyways, I did look at the older rules, including the original rule that was written shortly after St. Dominic's life, and all the rules all the way up to 1964, because they did do a change of rule in 1964. they all mention, which Tim will be excited about this. They all mention the militia of Jesus Christ in the rule. They talk specifically about the militia of Jesus Christ and all the rules, all the way up to 1964. So, and yeah, they've changed it quite a bit. So, I think after Vatican II, they've had to reuse the vocabulary change for third order communities, and so they've had to do a lot of different changing and tweaking and simplifying, and they have lowered the expectations, I guess, of the third order from what was originally the case. So that part in history is interesting.
One thing I did rule, I read about the rule, I think in 23.
Yes.
Okay, up to 23.
Yeah.
They required 1 year of the novitiate, and then you became a lay Dominican. There was no, after that,
Right.
there was, I think, 1 year of temporary, it was 1 year of temporary promises, and then you became a lay Dominican. So we've seen where it's progressed, where it's becoming harder and harder to become a lay Dominican. Okay, so, and I think we can talk about some of those things afterwards, but they've made it more difficult to become a lay Dominican. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it is kind of a confusing subject because they've had so many different changes to the rule. And this is partly because of the status of the church, and we have to take it with a grain of salt because we have had an infiltration with the church, and there's been a watering down across everything. So from the language itself to the actual rules, and this had happened in the Franciscan order, which I knew very much was about, and I know Francis was very specific, do not ever change any words in this rule, and they changed almost every one of them. So he was so insistent on never changing the rule, and yet we didn't even follow it. I mean, because it was so well, it was pretty radical. So, but anyways, yeah, it would be very hard to live the rule that St. Francis had originally lived. But we've grew up in such a cushy world, I guess, compared to when Francis was alive. So there is, I mean, you can definitely have arguments on both sides, but I would say the church has kind of lost its spark in a certain sense when it comes to living the gospel radically. And I don't know enough because I studied the Franciscan rule for 8 years straight. I don't know, I'm not as great of an expert on the Dominican rule, but I am slowly learning. And I realized all these translations, because the southern province has a different translation than the central and eastern and western. They all have different translations of the 1987 rule. And no one has you of the 2019 rule. So that part was a lot to try to kind of get together and try to get you guys informed about the rule. But anyways, we will provide you, I think this is the best that we have for right now is this one, and that's actually from the Eastern Province, according to Tim. So, and I could not find this online. So, and I know if you go to the Eastern Province website, they've now blocked all the modules, because you could download them for free and all the paperwork and all the forms, but now they're charging and selling them as books on the Eastern Province. So that's a new change. Do you?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I fought for the last 2 weeks to be able to get in and get this because I think it is financial rate to be paying $20.
Right, exactly.
For this, okay?
Yeah.
So I talked to Bob Katzenberger, who is the provincial Haimukimuck,
Yeah.
and you can go to laydominicans.org, sign in members, and you type in lay Dominican,
Yeah.
and the password is Zamora, ZAMORA asterisk 1286.
Oh, okay.
Once you get there, you pay I mean, it's a Chinese fire drill, but you can get there. And when you get in there, you have all the study modules.
Okay, well, that's good. I figured there was gotta be a backdoor way to it.
There is, but it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, doing my research for this one, because the module does not have the rule in it. It just talks about the rule. So I wanted to have the actual rule to kind of go by, and I was having a very hard time finding it. And luckily we had a copy of this. I don't have a copy of this. This is not my copy. This is just your copy, I think. So,
that's not.
it's not the new one is the problem.
Okay,
So there is a new one that they have not translated in English, but it could be done fairly quickly because it's literally only 5 or 6 pages. So, and I was going to try to do a cheap Google translation, but I didn't have time to deal with all that. So. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so we're gonna live the rule that we were given by the Dominicans in St. Louis Bertrand. Okay, that's what
Yeah.
we're doing. We have to make a decision. So
Yeah,
for
right
those
now,
people that
that's-
were not here last week or last month, they Brother John, and it's on the Servants of the Redemptor website. So we taped it and we put it on there. His talk. He's very frustrated. He's the promoter for the lay Dominican province, and it's very disordered. It's very disordered. Okay, but they want to hold us to things that they don't even know are the rules or not. Okay, so they kind of make it up as they go, and he is a very frustrated person. I've talked to him on multiple occasions, but at this moment in time, we feel like there is organization in the East, okay, and we're bringing that it to Southern Indiana, and we'll see where it goes with the Central as we progress, okay. So it's not just you think that everything's just cut and dry. Nothing's cut and dry. There's nothing cut and dry except confusion. That's pretty cut and dry. And if you start looking at this stuff, that's one of the big things. Up in Bloomington, Deacon Tom went up, and I went up there to bring in a group of 8 who have been trying 3 years to become novices. Okay, so that just goes to show you it's only supposed to take 6 months from postulant to become a novice, and then 1 year for a novice. So they couldn't even get anybody to do any of that. So I think we're pretty organized. I really do. I think we are trying as best we can to make sure that we're following all the rules and making sure that all the personalities are happy with us, and we're in the process of transferring from the East to the Central, but that's still, and I'll read after he's done with this, what Brother John said about the meeting last week, or last month. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely read his
Yeah.
email
Mhm.
because that was very informative.
Mhm.
Yeah, Deacon Franco?
Talking to Katzenberger, he
Mhm.
seems about the only one in the province. Just seems to know what he's doing.
Mhm.
And he mentioned about the 3 years. 3
Mhm.
years is based on going once a month to your meeting and
Mhm.
doing the assignment.
Mhm.
If you gather more often, you can move faster.
Yeah.
It's normally up to the president of your chapter to get it done.
Mhm.
But you must, in order to prove this, you have to submit every module coming in, all the questions they ask and so forth, in writing.
Mhm.
And so there you have you performed your duty and you have been formed.
Yeah, that's.
Who said this? You or
No, not me. I was talking about Katzenberger.
okay? So
That-
who's
so
Bob?
that was basically the Eastern Province.
That was based on the
that's-
Eastern Province. He said,
and I know the Central
remember he
Province
said,
has got
You have to
different,
wait
so.
3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
But if you work out 3 years,
Yeah.
that's 36 months.
You can condense it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
the
you.
time,
Okay.
squeeze the time.
that's good to hear.
So the rule itself has 3 parts to it, and I don't know if I clarified this or not, but the new version has one of the parts translated to English. So I was thinking, oh, good, I have it, and it's been translated. And then I started reading it, and then I realized, boom, I hit the Latin parts, and it's not fully translated. So there is part of it translated, but so just to be aware of that, there is 3 parts to the rule, and then and it's kind of divided up into the fundamental constitution of lay Dominicans is one part, the life of the chapters, and then the other part is the organization and government of the chapter. So basically, the rule is fairly short. It's not super long or anything. It's about 9 pages. But only really one little section really pertains to us, and I'm going to read that, and that's paragraph 10, and that kind of gives you the things that you're responsible for. And this is I'll read it from here because this one's a little bit better translation.
Is this the old rule or the new?
Well, it's the 1987, but I looked at the Latin, and the Latin seems to match up in the new rule to very similar to the same thing. The same bullet points are the same. It's the same bullet points, but they may word the sentences a little bit different. But this is basically what we're responsible for. To advance in your proper vocation, which inseparably joins the apostolic and the contemplative, lay Dominicans draw their strength from these principal sources. So this is not, one of the things about our rule is it is not bounding by sin. So that means you don't commit a sin by not doing these things. Now, when I was a Franciscan, if I did not live my rule, I was sinning. So there is a difference between people who take the 3 vows and they're full-fledged first order religious or second order religious. They are bound by sin if they don't follow the rule. And so as third order, that's in one sense it kind of gives you a wishy-washy thing about it because, well, I'm not sinning if I don't pray the rosary every day or whatever. But like for religious, it becomes a sin that they have to confess in the confessional. So that part is, it gives you more motivation to be more faithful to it because of that one aspect. So that, for me personally, because I lived 8 years under the rule of St. Francis, and I was very conscious of the fact that I could sin if I'm not living the rule, then when I come to this, it's kind of, well, this is going to be a cakewalk for me because because I don't have to worry about too much. But anyways, that's one aspect that you guys may not be too familiar with, and I don't know if the original rule had it binding as a sinful act if you did not follow the original rule.
I think the original documents took into the account
Mhm.
that of the lay state
Right.
more as
Right.
it pertains almost to the modern day
Mhm.
because of, most people were much more faithful as a people back 600-700 years ago. And now, because of the busyness of life and all the complications, this makes more sense to be a lay Dominican and then not be bound by sin because your son or your daughter or your wife or your family member or something has a problem, and you sit and you talk and you contemplate and you deal with the issue. And that's the main thing of being what a Christian is dealing with those things that are prevalent at that moment in time. And that's our lay state. So that's why we're not bound by sin to follow the rule. So
Right, because we have other responsibilities to take care of our family, provide
Right.
food, put on the table. But so anyways, the requirements that we have are not sinful, but they do say in one of these translations that it counts as a fault or an imperfection. And I know some priests may not like you to confess faults or imperfections, but I do know that you can confess faults and imperfections when you go to confession. But then the priest may think you're scrupulous or OCD, but I mean, because you don't have to do that, but you do get, supposedly you get graces for just spilling it all out in a certain way. But yeah, don't be OCD or scrupulous about it. So that there's a balance there. But you can't, like, if you're never praying your divine office or you're never praying your rosary, you can say, I have an imperfection, and clarify with the priest, because the priest will not know if you're a third order or not. So, but anyways, that is something that can be done. It's really not necessary, because really only mortal sins are what's necessary for confession. But you can, so there's mortal sins, there's venial sins, there's imperfections and faults. So those are another aspect in confession, which maybe you guys have never heard of. But we learned about it in religious life, that is an aspect of confession. And you get, just as if you confess venial sins, you get the graces through the confessional to rise above that, and you don't fall in, you can fight the habit forming practice, you can create a habit of doing these venial sins. You can get extra graces by confessing them in the confessional. And it's similar with the faults. So that's just, so if you don't do these things, it is technically an imperfection. So here's the things. Listen to the Word of God and reading sacred scripture, especially the New Testament. Daily participation as much as possible in the celebration of the liturgy and the Eucharistic sacrifice. Frequent celebration of the sacrament of reconciliation. So far, all of these are pretty much what a faithful Catholic should be doing anyways. Celebration of the liturgy of the hours in union with the entire Dominican family. So that one is a little bit different, because a regular Catholic is not required to do that. And then meditation on the Marian Rosary, conversion of heart, according to the spirit and practice of evangelical asceticism, assiduous study of revealed truth and unwavering reflection on contemporary problems under the light of faith. And then two more. Devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary according to the tradition of the order, to our Holy Father Dominic and to St. Catherine of Siena, and then periodic spiritual retreats. So the rule, that's the concrete actions that we as lay Dominicans should be very aware of and what's required. Now, I think each province will have other specific things done, like how to celebrate feast days and when to fast and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's determined. Well, I don't know for sure. I couldn't find any of that in any of the rule material, but I believe, see, when I was in religious life, we had rule and constitution. So the rule was St. Francis's rule that he originally wrote, and then we had constitutions that were just for the community that I was a part of, and they were more specific to our surrounding area and our way of life and everything. So there's probably something very similar to that in the Eastern Province and also Central Province. So that part, I haven't dove down deep enough to get that all figured out, but I will eventually. So, and I'll share it with you guys as I discover. And Deacon Franco probably knows a lot of that aspect.
I've sent to all three of you the original rule
Okay,
written by
good.
Zamora
Yep.
in 1280 something.
Okay.
You got, the whole thing comes in, you got all the rules up until 1991.
Okay.
First rule was at 1285, second one is 1923, third is 64, fourth is 68, fifth is 87, and the latest and the greatest is 2019. All
Yep.
of which are downloadable in PDF,
Okay, great.
English.
Okay, and we'll sort through that. Maybe by next class we'll have we'll send an email where you can download it yourself, because it is important for us. It says in the module that it's kind of silly to be a Dominican third order and not know what the rule is. You're kind of missing the point of everything. So let's see. When one makes a promise to live by the rule, it is wise to be familiar with the rule, how it came about, and why it is necessary. So I'll end with that, I guess.
Okay, I will read what Brother John's response was from his visit here, and then we'll talk about this. Okay, so he sent this the Monday after he got back. So Tim, I missed your call this morning at Mass at the Exaltation of the Cross, and just now getting back from break. I want to relay my thanks for allowing me the time to visit with the group. I felt it was time well spent. I cannot begin to relay how impressed I am with what you have built, both physically and spiritually. Most importantly, I am impressed with the people. I felt I was in the presence of caring Christians concerned about their sanctity and doing their best to respond to God's call. There is no question in my mind that the Spirit is at work in Evansville. Praise God. Thanks for the warm welcome and allowing me to ask some questions so as to help us clear the path for our way forward. Thanks to you in particular for my generous response to God in your life, and Gwen on this email, but never mind. Don't need to hear that. I wanted to clarify a bit my questions about the language around servants of the Redemptor. Later that morning, when Deacon Frankel and I were talking alone, he mentioned to me to simply think of that as an apostolate for the group. Once he said that, it made all sense. So sorry, I felt my questions were a bit awkward there as I could not understand the language and the website. But once Deacon said it was an apostolate, simply hearing that word triggered my mind and it all fell into place. Your voicemail today mentioned changing the names. I mentioned this just to let you know either way they make sense and am certainly fine with whatever the group decides. We were talking about changing the name so that we didn't have, we had clarity anytime somebody visited their website, what the Servants of the Redemptor was. So we were thinking about the woman clothed with the sun. So I hope my awkward questions did not sway your all's decision. I want to be of help to you all moving forward. I would humbly offer maybe some type of conference or talks for your group in the future. Evansville to St. Louis is an easy trip, also assuming COVID goes away. I would love to have your group come by to St. Louis to visit our Priory, Aquinas Institute, and get to know our brothers here. I think it would help you all feel more a part of the Central Province. The brothers here would certainly be interested in hearing about what you all are building in Evansville. I have already started to tell them in my trip and what I saw, and they are in disbelief. Frankly, we have never encountered lay Dominicans so full of energy and passion. You all have me and many of the other friars thinking about how we might need to consider expanding to Evansville and having a presence in the future. Thanks again for including me in your all's journey. Let me know how I can be of assistance. Brother John Stauberg, OP St. Albert the Great. Province. So I read that just to let you know that our response has been favorable since that time. I think they came here with a lot of questions, and now those questions are being sorted out. We were going to have, the Constitution of the Dominicans is there by law, by constitutional provision, they are supposed to meet every year and go through the necessary things that are on the table. And because of COVID, they've had to cancel that. They were going to meet in September, and now they're trying to get a Zoom meeting to see if they can all kind of come together and that can comply with the Constitution. That's in the Central Province. So that, one of the questions that will be brought up, whether they will accept us in the central or not as a chapter. And so, these are all things that, you know, like I said, everything's kind of on its head, you know, because of COVID-19. But they are moving forward, and it's all good. And then I want to also hand this over to Tom to kind of give an update with what's happening with the priestly fraternity, the name and their acceptance, and where you guys see it. So if you don't want to put you on the spot, thank you.
No, thank you. I have no clue, but thanks for asking.
Okay, great.
No.
Okay, good talk.
We went through a lot of painstaking things to develop a priestly fraternity here in Evansville. We went through all the contacts that we knew to go through. Thanks a lot with Deacon Franco helping so much and everything. And Leah and whoever. But anyway, you know, it's like the top dog of anybody, the buck stops here guy. I had spoke to him myself before we instituted a priestly fraternity here in Evansville. And anyway, long story short, we are developing now. They are wanting us to form, to go into a more formation here, and it's a year's formation to set it up in a way that they're extremely comfortable with us doing what we're doing, and so and they're so willing to work with us. It's at first we didn't know if these guys were, you know, foe or enemy. We didn't know who they was far against, but they're so far with us, and they're so excited for us. They want us to become part of the Central Province fraternity, and they want us to charter a right here in Evansville. They're really wanting us to, you know, which is unreal, because the nearest one you have here is like Peoria, Illinois, or something like that, or you know, to go to a chapter, and they really want it here because they see the excitement and the numbers that we're putting together here. So we'll do that, and I'd like to just add one thing to what I've heard at the meeting today, if it's okay.
Yeah.
A lot of this that we're talking about, you know, we're talking about all the rules, all these other things, and they're so very important. But the bottom line is that we form a unity. This community of people, you know, there aren't many safe havens in this world that I can go talk to somebody and just say exactly what I want to say, whether it be about church, the government, what's going on here or there. But, you know, we form a safe haven here, that we have a community that we're building. And all we want to do is what's right, to do it the way God wants us to. And, you know, we talk about the rules. We don't want to get caught up just in that, even though we want to obey. We want to be part of that. But I think we need to, I see this as a place, as really a safe haven that I go to be with like-minded people, to grow in my love of Jesus and Mary and the Holy Family, and to try to gain things. So anyway, I don't want to say too much here, but we don't want to lose that perspective of who we really are in our hearts. You know, whether we're part of a rule or we're part of whatever, the community that we build under the Dominican order, which is the best order, I feel, to do it under. It's awesome that we do this in unity. We got to have something to build with, so we're using the Dominican order. But really, that's to build a community that we walk with God together, and that we learn to call bull, bull, and good, good, and do these things together. And I think that's very important, that we don't lose perspective of that. Okay? All done.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Deacon Frank was going to say that.
Okay, Deacon
I'm
Franklin.
sorry to make so many interruptions.
We're used to it.
I have been working now for the last few months on the syllabus for the first year. And I think it would be very helpful for yourself and the new deacon, and maybe Father Jack, and as many people who would be interested in it, to get together and make sure. I mean, it's got to be tweaked a lot, but it's, as it stands right now, you can't fault it, but it might be insulting to somebody who's already ordained You know, I've been there, done that, I've read that type of thing.
Mhm.
And if you would be so kind, maybe we could set up a meeting with as many of these as possible, consider it a roundtable, and look at this and say, just like the bishops did when they made the catechism before it went bananas.
Mhm.
And so we can get this together in something that's presentable, and then let them tweak it further. And go
But
from
yeah,
there.
they actually have someone that's gonna be forming us. We're gonna go by their format. They're giving us an exact format to go by. I haven't, yeah, whenever it happens, we'll all be informed at the same time, and it's any day now, I think, that will happen, because they're still corresponding very well.
Yeah, they sent, I know, I can't say that I read it, but I do know that they accepted, they wanted us, the priests and the deacons, to, number one, to start a chapter, a priestly fraternity chapter. And in order to do that, we needed 5 or more. So we have the 5, they've accepted that. Now they have to do some things internally within the central. But they did accept the name, and the name is Mary Co-Redemptrix, to basically to help us. That's the whole idea, is for the priests to fraternally come together to help the laity do their work. And our work, as you can go to the website, is to promote the Fifth Marian dogma and to bring that about. Now, that's what our apostolate is all about. All of our apostolates, whatever they are, you know, like mine in particular, Barbara's in particular, I know Kent, is basically to do all the things that we feel, her being pronounced as Queen of Heaven and Earth, you know, and have the Holy Roman Pontiff declare the dogma of her as co-redemptrix, mediatrix, and advocate. That is our goal, that is our focus, and that is our apostolate, and then that is accepted by the Central, and that's accepted by the East as well, so through through Our Lady Queen of Peace. So those things are very, very, very important, that we stay focused, we know what our apostolates are, and we stay true to our rules and our prayers. But as Deacon Tom said, we are a community, and the world is kind of walking around on its hands. It's no longer on its feet. From every aspect, there's disorder. So we want to bring order to, if nothing else, our own personal lives, our families, and our community. I mean, I can't control everything that's going on in Washington or New York or Rome or anything of that nature, but we can control our own lives. And so our goal is to just basically stay the course and to deal with some of the things. So we're about done. I want to, we have 4 videos, okay, so 4 videos, and we have a 5th. The first video was on the servants of the Redemptor. The second video was about the DME, the Dominic Metals Exchange. The third video was about Indiana Cardinal, okay, and the economic engine. The fourth was we viewed last week or last month. It was about the guard and the militia of Jesus Christ. This video talks about our offering and the need for silver and such. So these things are not out in the general public square. They're private. We're trying to tweak all these things. There will be a time in the future where it will be public, but we will have the clerics and the deacons and the priests and our bishop and the Dominicans on board before we put this all out there. But we're basically putting this out, and there's going to be some things we've already noticed we want to change, but we just got this yesterday. And then there will be another one about why we make the offering. That'll be the 6th video. So go ahead.
Audio Jungle.
dollar was based on silver from the very beginning of our government. Enemies of our country and really enemies of God have tried to get control of the silver market.
Now, every dollar that's printed is printed out of nothing and nothing backing it. And so all of our work, everything that we strive to get further ahead in our lives is worth less and less every day because they're printing more and more every day. So there's nothing backing it.
As lay people, we can't call a conclave, we can't do the things that, some people say we need to do. What we're saying is we're doing what we can do, and that is organizing the militia of Jesus Christ to be that new American Institute for Works of Religion, and to be an economic help for our ordinary or any ordinary that wants help in any diocese.
Gold and silver has always been called God's money because there's so much work, so much industry that goes into producing, mining and producing that gold and silver. And so there is a great need to have an honest money.
The purity medal is the same fineness and weight of a silver eagle that the United States says is legal tender. We allow for people to bring silver to the upper room. They can put it in a basket, pick up a purity medal that's the same weight and fineness, and put it into the offering basket, and we take it to the altar and ask for Our Lady to intercede that this system that we're setting here crush the head of the usurious system throughout the globe. We're not trying to say that we've got the perfect solution here, but we've got certain parts of it that are in place that allow people to take the money out of this chaotic financial situation that we're all in and put it into this new American Institute of Works of Religion called the Militia of Jesus Christ. And we invested into things that allow for the economic viability of the church in the Diocese of Evansville.
We always believe that the Mass is the highlight of our faith. Everything comes from the Eucharist, and it unites us as His community of Dominicans, and by receiving His body, each of us are united to deepen the cause of His Mother Mary in our church and the world.
As an American Institute, we can't just look at the financial without looking at all the implications. There's a tax on every front as it pertains to Christ and His church. Our goal is to organize a guard to establish an economic system, a financial system, a political system, and setting up a new type of militia of Jesus Christ here in America.
Audio Jungle.
So Peel just pointed out to me, I don't think we showed the other video. Is that true? Has everybody seen the other video, the militia of Jesus Christ? Have you seen it? I don't know that we did. Huh?
It's on here. I
You
did
got,
put it on here because I
we'll
didn't think we showed it. But
Okay, let's go ahead.
I could be wrong.
We'll show it, and
Okay.
so that this was the 4th, and that was the 5th, and then there'll be a 6th done by next month.
The church has always had a group that were there to protect the values and the beliefs of the church. As we can see more and more violence around our country, I think there is a great need to have a militia.
We're all followers of St. Dominic, and he originally started a militia, the Militia of Jesus Christ, and we're trying to bring that back because it really got lost in history. Very few people know about that aspect of St. Dominic's life.
They fought against two things: heresies that were going on inside the church and heretics outside the church, and then the usurers who were stoking the divisions. And so we're seeing that all play over again. So it's very fitting that St. Dominic, who is our patron, we pray to him every day to ask for his guidance in setting up a new type of militia of Jesus Christ here in America.
To give you thanks, Lord, Holy Father, Almighty.
And so the militia is a very positive role in our world and in our church. It's just protecting our communities that we value so greatly in our faith.
My particular involvement revolves around the guard aspect of it, to organize and train so we can defend our actual buildings, our actual people, our churches. The responsible song, I will praise your name forever.
It's very Christian to take up arms, to defend our families, to defend our churches, defend people who have positions of power.
And I don't care, everybody's hands are different.
We've taken the self-defense classes, hand-to-hand combat. We have an active duty SWAT team leader that's going to be teaching us shooting skills, the open carry versus concealed carry.
But like really, they're center line.
It gives us a way to stand firm without breaking any laws, which is very important to us.
Going on, that's not necessarily.
We need to think in terms of our political band being the band that binds us together, not our theological differences. And so Christians and Catholics can come together politically and know that we've got a common enemy, just like American revolutionaries did.
It helps me to bring action to my prayer life. It helps me to have an outlet to actually try to live the gospel in a concrete way.
Our patron, St. Dominic, well known for
As Christians, we can all come together and talk and have a discussion about politics, the Christian social order, education, and also be able to pray together. And this allows us to do that.
I think there's another version,
Yeah.
but that's okay. It's, you get the gist, and there's some tweaking and all that. And we're gonna continue to tweak all these videos until we're ready to present this to the authorities so that we can put it out in the public domain. So we're not trying to jump out and just say all these things and not know that there's going to be implications to putting it out in the public square. We know that we will be attacked. So we're just preparing, we're building, we're setting up whatever we know they will come after us. We're trying to put up a defense. So anyway, does anybody have any questions or anything of that nature? So I don't know if there's anything else. Is anybody have anything? Go ahead.
How can you join the militia?
The main thing, there's three things. One is your priority part of it. You don't know it. Basically, you baptized, just basically baptism, Constitution, follow the Constitution, and follow the commandments of God. So we've set this up. Certainly, it's going to be administered by lay Dominicans. Okay, so we have a lot more that we're have to regard as important and rules to follow. But we're opening this up to other people who are want to place their money in the EPM system. They want to be able to grow their own food. They want to be able to train and do self-defense. So there's people within our company who are not Catholic that are just as much a part of the militia of Jesus Christ and organizing the protection of our building, our properties, our families, and things of that nature. So if you're a servant of the Redemptor, you're in the EPM system and you're buying and you are working here, you're part of the militia. That's the way. You don't have to sign a document or anything of that nature. So, but we encourage everyone to step forward and say, okay, look, Kent's got the guard covered. In fact, I think, Kent, if you would like to say something about Sheriff Mack on Tuesday night, that would be great. I don't know much about it, but I know that.
Well, I signed up for it. Sheriff Mack, he's a constitutional sheriff. I forget what county and what state.
He's in Arizona, I think.
Yeah, but he speaks a lot, and he's having a free seminar this Tuesday at 9 p.m. About protection of the church. You know, the different ways that they're attacking the church and the people, and it's not just physically; it's also politically in a lot of different ways. But It's gonna be a nice seminar. I got 12 speakers, come speak, probably a couple of seminar on it, but I'm gonna be watching that, and so I can report back to anybody that wants to know about it.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, we don't have a lot, there's a lot of help, don't get me wrong, and we love our help, but we're not that big, and we're just basically building the infrastructure right now and laying the foundation for all these things, to make sure that we understand them and the nature of which it needs to be organized. And it's not this is a pretty complex organization if you haven't figured that out yet. So, but the main thing is that is get involved, you know, and I can't tell everybody what they need to be doing. They need to figure it out themselves, you know, buying, getting organized, having concealed or having guns, or knowing the law, you know, helping us with counting, running an extruder, all these things really participate. John works out building walls, milking cows. Somebody has to do all this in order to have a system, okay? And don't think that you know, coming to mass is good enough, or coming to a meeting is good enough. Well, we need a lot of help. Our church needs a lot of help. And so in order to do that, we've got to be involved, and we've got to be doing things, you know, and not just like a lot of our shepherds, they say, you know, pray. Well, if we haven't been praying, we would not be doing this. So praying is an important aspect of being Catholic, but it's also doing. Do all that I commanded you. Make, you know, convert all nations. So we're not going to convert nations just by praying the Rosary, okay, and calling God down from heaven to save us again. He's already redeemed us. Now we have to work out our own salvation. So these are things that, you know, a lot of people don't want to hear that they got to do something different, you know, but they're going to have to do some things that are going to be different here in the future. So that's the whole thought process. But the main thing is get involved, and don't think it's not going to be your every little bit will help us, and we can make progress. And don't think a little bitty thing like pulling some weeds isn't a big deal, because somebody's got to pull the weeds, you know. So anyway, so go ahead, Father. Would you say a blessing? Yeah, thank you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together to renew and refresh ourselves, strengthen ourselves in the Eucharist and through our community gathering. We ask that as we now go our way, that give each of us individually the strengths that we find here to carry out your will, to hear your word, and to do it as Mary did, and to be a powerful influence in our church and in our community. For this, we accept your blessing in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Meeting. You got to get it in there. Yeah, you did good. Yeah. Yeah, she already did. She said she already